The conference
Our
room on the
quarterly
42nd
projections
floor of
indicate a
Sterling
significant
Enterprises buzzed with
uptrend,
the quiet
aligning with
energy
our
of ambitious
strategic goals for
professionals waiting for the
expansion.
weekly executive meeting to begin. Emma Carter sat near the window, her leather portfolio open in front of her, fingers drumming a silent rhythm against the polished mahogany table. She had arrived 15 minutes early, as always, prepared with printed reports,
I think we
color-coded
need to
notes, and
refine
3
our
different
approach
strategic
to ensure
proposals for the
maximum
upcoming quarter. Organization was a superpower, a shield against the chaos of corporate unpredictability. The door swung open with more force than necessary, and Emma didn't need to look up to know who had arrived. Jackson Hayes had a way of entering rooms that demanded attention, a particular brand of confident swagger that made her jaw clench. He breezed past her with that infuriating smile, the one that had charmed half the company into overlooking his occasional disregard for proper procedure. His suit jacket was slung over one shoulder, tie loosened just enough to seem approachable, dark hair slightly tousled in a way that probably took him 20 minutes to perfect but was meant to look effortless. "Morning, Carter," he said, his voice carrying that warm tone that fooled everyone but her. "Ready to hear about another one of your proposals getting shelved for something more innovative?" Emma finally looked up, her green eyes cool and steady. "Good morning, Hayes. I see punctuality still isn't your strong suit. The meeting starts in 3 minutes. Which means I'm early." He dropped into the chair directly across from her, spreading his materials across the table with casual disregard for neat organization. "Besides, some of us don't need to show up half an hour ahead to feel adequate." Before Emma could deliver her cutting response, the door opened again, and Richard Sterling himself entered, followed by the executive team. The 60-year-old CEO commanded respect with his silver hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Everyone straightened in their seats as he moved to the head of the table. "Good morning, everyone," Richard began, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades building Sterling Enterprises from a startup into a multinational corporation. "I'll keep this brief because I know you all have demanding schedules. We've been courting Meridian Investment Group for 8 months now, and they finally agreed to a face-to-face meeting to discuss partnership opportunities." Emma felt her pulse quicken. Meridian was huge, the kind of partnership that could define careers and reshape company trajectories. Every analyst in the building had been running numbers on the potential impact for weeks. Richard continued, "This meeting requires our absolute best. I need someone who understands the financial projections inside and out, someone who can speak to investors in their language with confidence and precision." His eyes landed on Emma. "Emma Carter, your analysis has been exceptional. You'll be our lead on the financial presentation." Pride swelled in Emma's chest, but she kept her expression professionally neutral. Years of working twice as hard as her male counterparts had taught her never to show too much emotion, never to give anyone ammunition to call her overly sensitive or inadequately composed. "However," Richard said, and Emma's satisfaction wavered, "we also need someone who can sell the vision, someone with the charisma to make Meridian not just understand the numbers but feel excited about them. Someone who knows how to work a room." His attention shifted. "Jackson Hayes, you'll handle the relationship management and strategic narrative." Emma's pen stopped mid-note. "No. Anyone but him." Jackson leaned back in his chair, that smile spreading across his face. "I'd be honored, Richard." "Excellent." Richard looked between them. "You two will fly to Miami Thursday morning. I've had my assistant book accommodations at the Ocean View Resort. You'll have meetings Friday and Saturday, with the final pitch on Sunday morning. This is a critical deal, and I'm trusting you both to represent Sterling at the highest level." The room continued with other business, but Emma barely heard any of it. Her mind raced through implications and complications. 3 days in Miami with Jackson Hayes. The man who had undermined her proposal for the Jacobson account by presenting a flashier alternative that ultimately delivered 20% less return than her conservative strategy would have. The same person who always seemed to get credit for collaborative projects despite contributing half the work. The marketing golden boy who coasted on charm while she burned midnight oil perfecting every detail. After the meeting adjourned, Emma gathered her materials with sharp, precise movements. She was aware of Jackson approaching but refused to acknowledge him until he spoke. "So, partner," he said, leaning against the table beside her, "looks like you're stuck with me for a few days. Try to contain your enthusiasm. This is a professional assignment, Hayes. I plan to treat it as such." Emma closed her portfolio with a decisive snap. "I suggest you take it seriously for once instead of treating everything like an opportunity for personal theater." Something flickered in his dark eyes, but the smile never wavered. "You know, Carter, one of these days you might consider that maybe I do take things seriously. Maybe I just don't feel the need to be rigid about everything. Rigid? Emma's voice dropped to a sharp whisper, mindful of the lingering executives nearby. I'm thorough. I'm prepared. I don't leave things to chance or rely on personality to compensate for lack of substance. And I don't let perfectionism paralyze me into missing opportunities, he countered, his voice equally low but somehow more intense. But sure, let's keep pretending I'm the irresponsible one and you're the only person in this building who knows how to do actual work. They stared at each other for a long moment, tension crackling in the space between them. Finally, Emma broke eye contact, moving toward the door. I'll send you my preliminary analysis by tomorrow morning. Try to read it before the flight. Can't wait, Jackson called after her, but she was already gone, heels clicking decisively down the corridor. Thursday morning arrived too quickly. Emma stood in the airport terminal at 6 in the morning, her carry-on perfectly packed according to a checklist she had created the night before. Business attire for meetings, one semi-formal dress for potential dinner obligations, backup presentations on 3 different USB drives, printed copies of all materials in case of technical failure, and enough organizational tools to manage a small military operation. Jackson arrived 12 minutes before boarding, moving through security with infuriating ease, somehow getting upgraded to first class through what Emma could only assume was excessive charm directed at the gate agent. She, despite her meticulous planning and loyalty program status, remained in the seat she had carefully selected 3 weeks ago. The flight was blessedly uneventful. Emma worked on her laptop, refining financial models while Jackson watched a movie, occasionally glancing in her direction with an expression she couldn't quite read and didn't care to interpret. Miami greeted them with humid warmth and brilliant sunshine. The Ocean View Resort was stunning, all white columns and ocean views, palm trees swaying in the breeze. Emma approached the check-in desk with her confirmation number ready. Reservation for Carter and Hayes, she told the front desk clerk, a young woman with bright eyes and a welcoming smile. The clerk typed efficiently, then paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. I have a reservation under Sterling Enterprises, but it shows 1 suite. Emma's stomach dropped. That's impossible. There should be 2 rooms. More typing, more frowning. I'm showing a premium ocean view suite with a living area and 1 bedroom. The reservation notes indicate it's for colleagues attending a business conference. There has to be a mistake. Emma pulled out her phone, scrolling through confirmation emails. We specifically requested separate accommodations. Jackson had joined them at the desk, listening to the exchange. Is there another room available? We'll handle any price difference. The clerk's expression turned apologetic. I'm so sorry, but we are completely booked. There's a medical convention and 2 weddings this weekend. We don't have a single room available, not even a standard. Emma closed her eyes, counting slowly to 10. Then 20. Can you check with other hotels in the area? 20 minutes and a dozen phone calls later, the situation was clear. Every decent hotel within reasonable distance was fully booked. They could either accept a suite or find accommodations 40 minutes away in a questionable neighborhood, which would make their tight meeting schedule nearly impossible to maintain. Fine, Emma finally said, her voice tight. We'll take the suite. But I need to establish some ground rules. In the elevator, tension thick enough to cut with a knife, Jackson finally spoke. Look, I'm not thrilled about this either, but we're professionals. We can handle sharing a space for 3 nights. I'm aware we're professionals, Emma replied, staring straight ahead at the brass elevator doors. That's exactly why this is complicated. The suite was beautiful, she had to admit. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, waves rolling onto white sand beaches. The living area featured comfortable furniture, a work desk, and a small kitchenette. And through an open doorway, 1 bedroom with 1 very large bed. Emma set her suitcase down with deliberate care. You take the couch. The couch. Jackson looked at the piece of furniture in question. That thing is maybe 5.5 feet long. I'm 6'2". That's not my problem. Actually, it kind of is if you want me functional for these meetings. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd seen 100 times in conference rooms. Look, it's a king bed. We can put pillows down the middle like reasonable adults, or I can sleep on the floor if it makes you feel better. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her anger and frustration, but exhaustion and practicality were winning. Pillows down the middle. You stay on your side. And for the love of everything professional, wear appropriate sleepwear. Define appropriate. Shirt and pants. Full coverage. This isn't a fraternity house. Jackson raised his hands in surrender, but there was something in his eyes that wasn't quite mockery. Your rules, Carter. I'll behave. That evening, after reviewing presentation materials until Emma's eyes burned, they prepared for bed with awkward politeness. Jackson emerged from the bathroom wearing a t-shirt and athletic pants, hair damp from the shower. Emma, already changed into modest pajamas, had constructed a barrier of 4 pillows down the center of the mattress. They lay in the darkness on opposite sides of their fabric border, the sound of waves drifting through the partially open balcony door. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and charged with all their unspoken history. Emma, Jackson said quietly, and the use of her first name startled her. He never called her Emma. I know you think I don't take this seriously, but I do. This deal matters, and I'm not going to let whatever is between us mess it up. She turned her head slightly, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. What is between us, Hayes? I don't know, he admitted. But maybe after this trip, we figure it out. Emma didn't respond, but something in her chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with professional rivalry and everything to do with the growing awareness that hating Jackson Hayes was becoming significantly more complicated than she had ever intended. Morning light filtered through sheer curtains, casting golden patterns across the hotel suite. Emma woke to the sound of the shower running and the distant crash of waves. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was, then memory returned with uncomfortable clarity. Miami. The Meridian deal. Jackson Hayes sleeping inches away, separated only by pillows that had somehow migrated during the night. She sat up quickly, noticing that 2 of the 4 barrier pillows had ended up on the floor, and at some point during the night, her hand had drifted across the invisible boundary. The space where Jackson had slept still held the impression of his body, the sheets slightly warm. Emma pushed the observation away, focusing instead on the day ahead. She had exactly 90 minutes before their first meeting with Meridian's investment team. Time to shower, dress, review her notes one final time, and mentally prepare for the most important presentation of her career. When Jackson emerged from the bathroom, hair still damp and skin flushed from hot water, Emma grabbed her clothes and slipped past him without making eye contact. She needed coffee, clarity, and about 6 feet of personal space to remember why professional distance mattered. The shower helped. By the time she stepped out, wrapped in the plush hotel robe, her mind had shifted into work mode. She dried her hair, applied minimal makeup with practiced efficiency, and dressed in a navy suit with a silk blouse that made her feel capable and powerful. When she emerged, Jackson was already dressed in charcoal gray, reviewing notes on his tablet. He looked up, and something crossed his face too quickly for her to identify. You look ready to close a deal. That's the plan. Emma poured coffee from the room service cart that had arrived while she was in the bathroom. We should leave in 20 minutes. I want to arrive early, scope out the room, test the equipment. Of course you do. But there was no mockery in his tone, just something that might have been respect. The Meridian Investment Group offices occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in downtown Miami. Emma and Jackson were ushered into a conference room with panoramic ocean views, where 5 executives waited with expressions of polite interest and barely concealed skepticism. Emma launched into her presentation with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed every word, every inflection, every potential question and answer. Numbers flowed from her like poetry, each statistic building on the last to create an irrefutable narrative of growth potential and strategic advantage. She watched the executives lean forward, watched interest spark in their eyes as she demonstrated exactly how a partnership with Sterling Enterprises would triple their regional market share within 18 months. Then Jackson took over, and Emma witnessed something she had never quite appreciated before. He didn't just sell the vision, he made them feel it. Where she had provided facts, he provided story. Where she had shown projections, he painted pictures of what those numbers meant for real people, real communities, real impact. His charisma wasn't just empty charm. It was strategic, purposeful, effective. Together, they were formidable. The meeting ran 90 minutes, ending with handshakes and promises to reconvene tomorrow for deeper discussions. As they left the building, Jackson turned to Emma with genuine admiration in his eyes. That was incredible. Your analysis of the Southeast Asian market expansion was exactly what they needed to hear. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest, unfamiliar and unsettling. Your pitch about community investment initiatives sealed it. I didn't know you had developed that angle. I worked on it last night after you fell asleep. Heard you talking in your sleep about sustainable growth models and figured I should probably bring my game up to match yours. I do not talk in my sleep. You absolutely do. Something about quarterly projections and risk mitigation strategies. It was actually kind of adorable. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. That's mortifying. It's dedicated. Jackson held the door for her as they exited into bright Miami sunshine. Come on, we have 3 hours before the dinner event. Want to grab lunch? They found a small Cuban restaurant 2 blocks from their hotel, tucked between tourist traps and local businesses. The food was incredible, and somewhere between the ropa vieja and the sweet plantains, their conversation shifted from business to something more personal. Why do you work so hard? Jackson asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. And I don't mean that as criticism. I mean, you're brilliant. You could coast on half the effort and still be the best analyst in the company. But you push yourself like you're constantly trying to prove something. Emma set down her fork, considering whether to give him the truth. My father built his accounting firm from nothing. Worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed everything for success. When I was 12, he had a massive heart attack at his desk. Died instantly. Jackson's expression softened. Emma, I'm sorry. Everyone told my mother he worked too hard, that ambition killed him. But I saw something different. I saw a man who loved what he did, who found meaning in excellence. The tragedy wasn't that he worked hard. It was that he didn't get to see how his dedication changed people's lives. She met Jackson's eyes. So yes, I work hard. Because competence matters. Because precision matters. Because doing something well is its own reward, regardless of recognition. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. My story is almost the opposite. My dad was VP at a Fortune 500 company, corner office, executive parking spot, the whole package. He was also miserable. He'd come home exhausted, angry, disconnected from everything except his next promotion. When I told him I wanted to go into marketing instead of finance, he said I was wasting my potential on frivolous nonsense. That's terrible. He died 3 years ago. Never told me he was proud, never acknowledged that maybe there's value in work that connects people instead of just moving money around. Jackson's voice held old pain. So I make it look easy because I refuse to be miserable. I refuse to let ambition steal joy. But that doesn't mean I don't care, Emma. It just means I care differently. Emma felt something shift, some fundamental recalibration of her understanding. She had spent 2 years dismissing Jackson as superficial, but there was depth there she had never bothered to see. I think I've misjudged you, she admitted quietly. I think we've misjudged each other. That evening, they discovered the dinner event was actually a couples-themed networking reception at an exclusive beachfront restaurant. Partners from various investment firms mingled over cocktails and seafood, many with their actual spouses or significant others. This is awkward, Emma whispered as they entered, immediately noticing the intimate atmosphere and the way everyone seemed paired off. Oh, Jackson said, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture that sent electricity up her spine, we could just go with it. Pretend for one night. Makes the networking easier. Pretend to be a couple. Why not? We're already sharing a bed. His grin was mischievous, but his eyes held a challenge. Emma should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries and professional distance. Instead, she heard herself say, fine. But keep your hands appropriate. Define appropriate, he murmured, and she elbowed him lightly. Playing the role of Jackson's girlfriend turned out to be dangerously easy. He kept his hand on her waist as they moved through the crowd, introducing her with genuine pride in his voice. When a senior partner from Meridian made a comment about the rarity of beautiful women in finance, Jackson's expression went cold. Emma is here because she's the best financial analyst in the Southeast region, not because of her appearance. Though I'd argue her intelligence is what makes her truly beautiful. The rebuke was delivered with a smile, but there was steel underneath. The partner backtracked quickly, and Emma felt something warm bloom in her chest. Jackson had defended her not for show, but because he genuinely respected her work. As the evening progressed, the lines between pretense and reality blurred. Jackson's touch felt natural, necessary. When he laughed at something she said, the sound made her want to be funnier. When he looked at her with those dark eyes, she forgot why she had ever considered him an enemy. They walked back to the hotel along the beach, shoes in hand, waves lapping at their feet. The moon hung low and full over the water, painting everything silver. "Can I tell you something?" Jackson stopped walking, turning to face her. The ocean breeze caught his hair, and in the moonlight, he looked almost vulnerable. "I've been attracted to you since your first week at Sterling. You walked into that budget meeting, completely decimated Thompson's projections with 15 minutes of analysis, and I thought, that's the most impressive person I've ever met. And then you looked at me like I was a nuisance, and I figured the only way to get your attention was to challenge you." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "So you've been deliberately annoying me for 2 years because you liked me. Worked, didn't it? You definitely noticed me." Jackson. She didn't know what to say, how to process this revelation. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Tell me I'm reading this wrong. Tell me the last 2 days have been purely professional for you, and I'll back off completely." Emma opened her mouth to do exactly that, to re-establish boundaries and retreat into safety. But standing there with sand between her toes and moonlight in his eyes, she couldn't lie. "You're not reading it wrong." Jackson's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." The kiss started soft, tentative, a question being asked and answered. Then Emma's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and the gentleness transformed into something urgent and consuming. He tasted like salt air and possibility, his hands in her hair, her back arching into him as waves crashed nearby and the rest of the world dissolved into irrelevance. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jackson pressed his forehead to hers. "We should probably talk about what this means." "Tomorrow," Emma whispered, stealing another kiss. "Let's just have tonight." They made it back to the hotel suite in a blur of stolen kisses and tangled hands. The pillow barrier was abandoned, forgotten in favor of exploration and discovery. Jackson was patient and passionate, learning what made her gasp, what made her sigh. Emma let go of control for the first time in years, trusting him with her vulnerability, finding strength in surrender. Later, wrapped in sheets and moonlight, Jackson traced patterns on her shoulder. "No regrets." "Ask me tomorrow," Emma said, but she was smiling, her head tucked perfectly under his chin. "Fair enough." He kissed her temple. "Sleep, Carter. Big day tomorrow." "You too, Hayes." But neither of them slept for a long time, too aware of the miracle of proximity, too grateful for the unexpected gift of understanding, too hopeful about what morning might bring. Sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows woke Emma gradually, the warmth on her face pulling her from dreams into reality. For several perfect seconds, she existed in that liminal space between sleep and consciousness, aware only of comfort and contentment. Then memory flooded back, sharp and immediate, and her eyes flew open. Jackson's arm was draped across her waist, his chest pressed against her back, his breathing slow and even against her neck. They had migrated together during the night, abandoning their respective sides of the bed entirely for this intimate tangle of limbs and shared warmth. Emma's first instinct was panic. What had she done? This was Jackson Hayes, her colleague, her rival, the man whose professional approach she had criticized for 2 solid years. And yet her body fit against his like puzzle pieces designed specifically to interlock, and the hand resting on her hip felt more right than anything he had in recent memory. She tried to slip away carefully, but Jackson stirred, his arm tightening slightly. "Don't," he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. "Stay. We have the final presentation in 4 hours. Plenty of time." He nuzzled into her hair. 5 more minutes. Emma should have insisted on getting up, on re-establishing professional boundaries, on discussing the complications and implications of what they had done. Instead, she relaxed back into his warmth, allowing herself these stolen moments before reality demanded its due. When they finally did rise, the atmosphere was charged with unspoken questions. They moved around each other carefully, polite and distant, until Jackson caught her wrist as she reached for her coffee. "Emma. Look at me." She met his eyes reluctantly, bracing for regret or awkwardness or the inevitable conversation about why this had been a mistake. Instead, Jackson said, "Last night was the best night I've had in years. I don't regret it. I need you to know that before we walk into that meeting room." The tightness in her chest loosened slightly. "I don't regret it either." But Jackson, this is complicated. We work together. There are policies about workplace relationships, and even if they weren't, people will talk. They'll assume I'm using you for career advancement or that you're taking advantage of power dynamics. I'm not your supervisor. You're not mine. We are colleagues at the same level. He stepped closer, his free hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. And anyone who knows you for 5 minutes knows you don't need any help advancing your career. You're a force of nature, Emma Carter. People won't see it that way. Then we make them see it. Together. His thumb traced her jawline. Unless you don't want this. If last night was just a one-time thing, tell me now, and we'll go back to being professional colleagues who happen to work well together. I'll follow your lead. Emma looked at him, really looked. Saw past the charm and the confidence to the genuine person underneath. Saw someone who had defended her, respected her, challenged her to be better while accepting her exactly as she was. Saw possibility that terrified and excited her in equal measure. I want this, she admitted. But I am scared. Me too. He kissed her forehead. Let's be scared together. The final presentation to Meridian's full executive board was 2 hours of intense questioning, challenging projections, and strategic negotiation. Emma and Jackson operated as a seamless unit, anticipating each other's points, building on each other's arguments, creating a compelling case that was greater than the sum of its parts. When the lead investor stood to shake their hands, his smile was genuine. Sterling Enterprises is fortunate to have such a dynamic team. We'll have our attorneys draft the partnership agreement by end of week. Victory tasted sweet, made sweeter by the quick squeeze of Jackson's hand as they left the building. They had done it. Together, they had secured the deal that would define Sterling's next quarter and possibly the entire fiscal year. That evening, their last night in Miami, they sat on the hotel balcony watching the sun set over the Atlantic. Jackson had ordered room service, and they ate fresh seafood and drank champagne, celebrating success and the tentative new thing growing between them. So what happens Monday? Emma asked, setting down her glass. We just walk into the office holding hands and announce we're dating. Why not? Because it's complicated. Because Richard might have concerns. Because our colleagues will have opinions. Jackson turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Emma, I spent 2 years wanting you and pretending I didn't. I'm not interested in hiding anymore. But I also won't push you into anything you're not ready for. We can take it slow, be discreet until you're comfortable. You'd do that. I'd do a lot of things for you. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Including wait. Including fight. Including defend you to anyone who suggests our relationship is anything other than 2 people who respect each other choosing to build something together. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, unexpected and embarrassing. I'm not good at this. Relationships. Vulnerability. I work 80-hour weeks and I'm controlling about details and I'll probably drive you crazy. You already drive me crazy. That's part of your charm. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. I'm messy and I make jokes at inappropriate times and I'll probably forget important dates occasionally. We're both disasters in our own ways. But maybe we're disasters that work well together. She laughed, the sound watery but genuine. We really closed the Meridian deal. We really did. And tomorrow, we're going to get on a plane and go home and figure out how to make this work in the real world. I'm terrified. Good. Means it matters. He tilted her chin up, kissing her softly. Besides, you're Emma Carter. You don't back down from challenges. You conquer them. Monday morning arrived with Florida humidity and early flights. They sat together on the plane, Emma's head on Jackson's shoulder, fingers intertwined on the armrest between them. Other passengers glanced at them with the soft smiles usually reserved for obviously happy couples, and Emma realized she didn't care. Let them look. Let them see. The Sterling Enterprises office felt different when they walked in Tuesday morning. Jackson had insisted on picking her up, and they arrived together, his hand on the small of her back as they entered the lobby. Emma saw heads turn, saw whispers start, and felt her stomach clench with anxiety. But Jackson just smiled at her, squeezed her hand once, and headed to his desk to start reviewing the Meridian contract details. The whispers intensified throughout the morning. Marina appeared at Emma's desk within an hour, eyes wide with curiosity. Please tell me the rumors about you and Jackson Hayes are true, she whispered urgently. Please tell me you finally realized he's been crazy about you forever. Emma felt a smile tug at her lips despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. We're dating. It's new, and it's private, but yes. Marina squealed quietly. I knew it. Everyone knew it except you too. This is the best thing ever. Not everyone is going to be supportive. Then they can mind their own business. Marina hugged her quickly. I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. The day proceeded with mixed reactions. Some colleagues were genuinely happy. Others made snide comments about office romances and professional boundaries. When someone suggested in the break room that Emma had only been chosen for the Miami trip because Jackson wanted to sleep with her, Jackson happened to walk in and hear the remark. Actually, he said, his voice cold enough to freeze, Emma was chosen because Richard Sterling specifically requested the best financial analyst in the company. Her presentation closed the deal. I was there to support her brilliance, not the other way around. Anyone who suggests otherwise can take it up with me directly. The break room cleared quickly. Emma, who had been preparing to defend herself, felt gratitude and love swell in equal measure. He hadn't swooped in to rescue her, he had simply stated facts and offered to stand beside her if she needed backup. That afternoon, Richard Sterling called them both into his office. Emma's heart pounded as they sat across from his imposing desk, waiting for judgment. I heard about Meridian, Richard said, leaning back in his leather chair. Outstanding work, both of you. The partnership terms are exactly what we needed. Thank you, sir, Emma said professionally. I also heard rumors about a personal relationship developing during the trip. The silence stretched, tense and loaded. Finally, Jackson spoke. Emma and I are dating, yes. It doesn't affect our work performance. If anything, we collaborate more effectively now. Richard studied them for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, surprising them both. I've watched you two circle each other for 2 years, competing and clashing and pushing each other to be better. I'm not surprised you finally figured it out. He leaned forward, expression turning serious. However, I need your word that if the relationship ends, it ends professionally. Sterling Enterprises can't afford to lose either of you. You have my word, Emma said firmly. Mine too, Jackson added. Good. Now get back to work. I want the full Meridian implementation strategy by end of week. Walking out of Richard's office, Emma felt light, almost giddy. Jackson caught her hand in the hallway, pulling her into an empty conference room. He kissed her thoroughly, his hands framing her face like she was something precious. We did it, he murmured against her lips. We're really doing this. We are. Emma kissed him back, pouring all her hope and fear and possibility into the gesture. Together. The following weeks were an adjustment. They learned to navigate office politics and professional boundaries, to separate work disputes from personal disagreements, to support each other without overshadowing individual achievements. Emma still arrived early and stayed late, but now Jackson often stayed with her, working on his own projects or simply keeping her company. She learned to relax slightly, to accept that not everything required perfection. He learned that structure and planning had value, that her thoroughness protected them both from potential disasters. 3 months later, as they presented another successful deal to the executive board, this time for an international expansion into European markets, Emma caught Jackson's eye across the conference table. He winked, subtle enough that only she noticed, and she felt warmth spread through her chest. They had started as rivals, become partners, evolved into lovers. The journey hadn't been easy, but standing there with Jackson beside her, defending their shared vision to a room of skeptical executives, Emma realized something profound. She had spent years building walls to protect herself, to prove she didn't need anyone, to demonstrate that professional success was enough. But having someone who challenged her, supported her, loved her exactly as she was while inspiring her to grow didn't make her weaker. It made her more complete. Jackson hadn't saved her or fixed her or changed who she fundamentally was. He had simply seen her truly and chosen to stay, to build something together that neither of them could have created alone. After the meeting, as they walked out of Sterling Enterprises into the evening sunshine, Jackson laced his fingers through hers. Dinner at my place, he asked. I'm cooking. You're cooking? Emma raised an eyebrow. Should I be concerned? Probably. But you love me anyway. She stopped walking, turning to face him on the busy sidewalk, commuters flowing around them like water around stones. I do love you. Even though you never fold your laundry and you make terrible puns during serious moments. And I love you, even though you color code your closet and you stress clean at 2 in the morning. We are ridiculous. We are perfect. He kissed her there on the street, both of them smiling. Come on, Carter. Let's go home. And walking hand in hand toward whatever future they would build together, Emma realized that sometimes the best partnership started with competition, that the deepest love grew from understanding, and that taking risks on people and possibilities was always worth it. The tension had changed everything. And everything, Emma thought as Jackson squeezed her hand, was exactly how it was supposed to be.